On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected.
Thank you to all our amazing channel members for your generous support.
James Earl Jones, one of the most iconic voices in cinematic and theatrical history, passed away on September 9, 2024, in Los Angeles at the age of 93. His death, the result of natural causes, came after a long and celebrated life in which his deep, resonant voice became inseparable from cultural landmarks such as Star Wars, where he gave life to Darth Vader, and Disney's The Lion King, where he voiced Mufasa. Unlike the tragic, premature deaths of many Hollywood legends, Jones's passing reflected the arc of a full life, emblematic of an era when longevity allowed artists to enjoy generational reverence and continued relevance. The circumstances of his death revealed much about the values of his era. In the 21st century, society increasingly celebrates not only the fleeting brilliance of youth, but also the endurance of talent across decades. Jones's career, which spanned stage, screen, and television, was a testament to perseverance, craft, and adaptability. His passing underscored how figures who manage to age gracefully in the public eye are cherished not just for their past triumphs, but also for the stability and continuity they represent in a rapidly changing cultural landscape. The immediate consequences of his death were felt worldwide. Tributes poured in from Hollywood, Broadway, and beyond, with fans and colleagues recognizing not only his artistic achievements, but also his personal triumph over obstacles. Jones had struggled with a debilitating childhood stutter, transforming what once seemed like a limitation into his greatest asset. A voice that could command galaxies or comfort audiences with paternal wisdom. His story inspired countless individuals who faced their own challenges, making his passing more than the loss of an actor. It was the departure of a symbol of resilience. His death amplified his legend in profound ways. While James Earl Jones was celebrated throughout his lifetime with honors such as the Tony Award, an Academy Honorary Award, and the Kennedy Center Honors, his passing crystallized his contributions in the collective memory. The characters he voiced and portrayed were already immortal, but his death cemented his role as a cultural touchstone, ensuring his work will continue to resonate with future generations. Reflecting on his departure invites us to consider humanity's ongoing relationship with mortality and memory. We immortalize figures like James Earl Jones, not only through the films and plays they leave behind, but also through the emotions those works evoke. In art, in memorials, and in the retelling of their stories, we ensure they live on. Jones's passing reminds us that while death is inevitable, legacy is enduring, and through memory and cultural preservation, voices like his never truly fall silent. Burgess Meredith, a versatile American actor whose career spanned stage, film, and television, died on September 9, 1997, in Malibu, California, at the age of 89. His death was attributed to complications from Alzheimer's disease and melanoma, conditions that reflected both the vulnerabilities of aging and the growing awareness of such illnesses in the late 20th century. Unlike sudden or violent deaths that often dominate headlines, Meredith's passing was quiet, the culmination of a long life marked by artistic achievement and resilience through personal and professional challenges. The circumstances of his death highlight the values of his era. In the 1990s, conversations around Alzheimer's disease were beginning to enter the mainstream, drawing attention to the impact of degenerative conditions on not only individuals, but also their families and caregivers. Meredith's decline humanized this struggle for fans who had seen him embody characters of strength, wit, and endurance, particularly his role as Mickey Goldmill, the grizzled boxing trainer in the Rocky series. His passing underscored a cultural shift toward confronting aging and illness openly rather than masking them behind Hollywood's glamour. The immediate consequences of his death were seen in the flood of tributes from colleagues and admirers. To one generation, he was George in the acclaimed film adaptation of Mice and Men, 1939, bringing depth to John Steinbeck's Depression-era tale. To another, he was the Penguin in the campy 1960s Batman television series, a role that showcased his comedic timing and made him a beloved figure among younger audiences. And of course, for millions, he would forever be remembered as Mickey, whose gruff encouragement, "You're gonna eat lightning and crap thunder," symbolized determination and grit. Meredith's passing left a void in American culture, reminding audiences of the breadth of his contributions to entertainment across decades. His death amplified his legend by sealing his place as one of Hollywood's quintessential character actors. Unlike leading men whose fame often fades with time, Meredith's strength lay in his ability to transform and adapt, moving seamlessly between Shakespearean theater, classic literature adaptations, comic book villains, and sports dramas. His legacy continues not only through the characters he portrayed, but also in the way he embodied the versatility demanded of actors navigating changing eras of entertainment. Reflecting on his death invites broader questions about mortality and memory. Figures like Burgess Meredith remind us that cultural immortality often comes not from a single role, but from a lifetime of work that resonates across generations. Through films, television reruns, and the enduring cultural presence of Rocky and Batman, Meredith remains alive in memory. His passing illustrates humanity's impulse to preserve and honor those whose art shaped collective imagination, ensuring that even as the body fades, the performance endures forever. Caterina Valente, the Italian-born singer, dancer, and actress who became one of Europe's first truly international stars, passed away at the age of 93. Her death was attributed to natural causes, marking the end of a long, graceful life dedicated to music and performance. Unlike the tragic or sudden deaths that often dominate public imagination, Valente's passing was emblematic of a different kind of legacy, one shaped by longevity, adaptability, and a cosmopolitan spirit that reflected the optimism of the post-war era. Valente's career flourished during the 1950s and 1960s, a period when Europe sought cultural renewal after the devastation of World War II. She rose to fame with her crystalline voice, masterful guitar playing, and remarkable linguistic ability, performing fluently in Italian, French, German, Spanish, and English. This versatility made her a symbol of the era's longing for unity across borders, as she connected audiences in a way few entertainers could. The fact that she lived into her 90s, continuing to be admired by fans worldwide, reflects the durability of mid-20th century popular culture and the global appetite for cross-cultural exchange. The immediate consequence of her death was a wave of tributes across Europe and beyond. For many, she represented an era of elegance and sophistication, when variety shows, jazz-inflected pop, and international collaborations defined entertainment. Her appearances on American television, including The Dean Martin Show and The Ed Sullivan Show, expanded her audience and positioned her as a bridge between European artistry and American popular culture. Her passing reminded the world not only of her personal achievements, but also of a bygone age when entertainers could thrive without borders, their work transcending language and nationality. Valente's death amplifies her legend as one of the last great performers of the classic variety tradition. In an age where celebrity often burns brightly but briefly, her decades-spanning career stands as a testament to craft, discipline, and the enduring power of music to unite people. She may not have been as globally ubiquitous as Frank Sinatra or Edith Piaf, but her contributions to the shaping of modern European pop were no less significant. Her passing prompts reflection on how humanity relates to memory and mortality. Figures like Caterina Valente remind us that while voices eventually fall silent, their resonance endures. Through recordings, film performances, and cultural memory, Valente remains immortal, not only as a performer, but as a symbol of post-war hope and global connection. In remembering her, we recognize how art transcends time, turning mortality into a bridge between past and future generations. Ruth Roman, the American actress best known for her roles in 1940s and 1950s Hollywood films, passed away on September 9, 1999, in Laguna Beach, California, at the age of 75. Her death was attributed to natural causes. Unlike the sensational or tragic endings that often dominate Hollywood lore, Roman's passing was quiet, reflective of a career that had flourished in the golden era of film before settling into a dignified later life. Her death, though not sudden or scandalous, invites reflection on the transitions of Hollywood itself, from a studio-driven star system to an era in which fame was increasingly fleeting. Roman rose to stardom as one of Warner Brothers' leading ladies in the late 1940s, admired for her striking presence and ability to handle both noir thrillers and high drama. She appeared in Alfred Hitchcock's Strangers on a Train, 1951, a role that cemented her place in cinematic history, and worked alongside stars such as Kirk Douglas and Gary Cooper. Her career mirrored the aspirations of post-war America, when film sought to balance glamour with stories that touched on moral ambiguity and modern anxieties. The immediate consequence of her passing was a wave of retrospectives that reminded audiences of her place in film history, especially as part of Hitchcock's legacy. For cinephiles, Roman's death underscored how many stars of Hollywood's mid-century heyday had by then become figures of nostalgia rather than contemporary icons. While she may not have had the sustained fame of contemporaries like Bette Davis or Joan Crawford, her body of work carried a distinct resonance, especially for those who admired the noir and melodrama genres. Her death amplified her legend in a subtle way. As audiences revisited Strangers on a Train or Champion, 1949, they were reminded of her understated strength as an actress who often played women negotiating power, desire, and danger in ways reflective of her time. These roles spoke to shifting gender dynamics in post-war America, where women's independence was both celebrated and constrained. Roman's passing highlights humanity's relationship with memory and mortality by illustrating how fame evolves over time. Unlike figures immortalized through scandal or tragedy, Roman is remembered through the permanence of her filmography, where each performance offers a glimpse of the cultural values of her era. In commemorating her, whether through classic film screenings or cinematic analysis, we affirm how art immortalizes even those whose names may fade from everyday recognition. Ruth Roman's death reminds us that memory itself is an act of preservation, shaping how legacies endure across generations. Mao Zedong, the founding father of the People's Republic of China, died on September 9, 1976, in Beijing at the age of 82. His death was the result of complications from Parkinson's disease and multiple heart attacks, marking the end of a life that had been both revolutionary and controversial. Mao's passing was not sudden. His declining health had been closely watched for years, but its timing marked the close of an era that had radically reshaped China's political, social, and cultural landscape. The death of Mao carried profound, immediate consequences. For decades, he had been not only the political leader of China, but also a near-deified figure in state propaganda, often portrayed as the embodiment of communist ideals. His death created uncertainty in a nation that had grown accustomed to a centralized and personalized form of rule. Though his chosen successor, Hua Guofeng, briefly carried forward his policies, the subsequent rise of Deng Xiaoping ushered in sweeping reforms. These reforms shifted China from Mao's rigid collectivist vision toward market-oriented policies that redefined both China's economy and its role on the global stage. Mao's passing amplified his legend in complex ways. On one hand, he remained revered by many as the leader who ended centuries of dynastic rule, unified the country, and gave China a sense of modern national identity. His image continued to dominate public squares, currency, and political rhetoric. On the other hand, his death opened the door to critical reassessments of his legacy, particularly regarding the human toll of the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution, which had caused immense suffering. This duality, hero to some, tyrant to others, ensured that his place in history remained both monumental and contested. His death also reflected the values of his era, the belief in revolutionary leadership, the dangers of personality cults, and the tension between tradition and modernization. The mourning rituals, including mass public displays of grief, demonstrated the state's power to shape collective memory, while revealing the deep psychological bond between citizens and their leader. In reflecting on Mao's death, we see how humanity grapples with mortality and memory on a monumental scale. Leaders like Mao are immortalized not only through statues, literature, and art, but also through the lived consequences of their policies, which continue to shape generations. His death reminds us that while human lives are finite, the ideas and structures they leave behind echo far beyond their passing, challenging us to confront both the power and the peril of legacy. Shere Hite, the German-American sex educator and feminist researcher, died on September 9, 2020, in London at the age of 77 after battling an undisclosed illness. Her death was peaceful, but symbolic of a life spent challenging societal taboos around sexuality and gender equality. Unlike the violent or sudden ends that marked many public figures of the 20th century, Hite's passing was natural, reflecting an era in which voices like hers, once vilified, had gradually gained recognition, though not without enduring controversy. The immediate consequence of her death was a revival of discussion around her groundbreaking work, particularly the Hite Report, 1976, which revolutionized the understanding of female sexuality by emphasizing women's own voices and experiences. At the time of publication, her candid exploration of female desire and pleasure clashed with conservative values and drew backlash from both male critics and some within the feminist movement. Yet by the time of her passing, her work had been reassessed as foundational, influencing later generations of scholars and activists. Her death became a moment of cultural reflection. Society paused to measure how far it had come in acknowledging women's autonomy and how far it still had to go. Hite's legacy was amplified by her departure. In life, she endured heavy criticism, particularly in the United States, where she eventually renounced her citizenship in frustration with the backlash. In death, however, she was celebrated as a pioneer whose courage helped break silences around topics once considered unspeakable. This shift illustrates how mortality often transforms public perception, softening resistance and elevating figures into icons of progress. Her passing also mirrored the challenges of her era. The 1970s and 1980s were decades of social upheaval, in which women fought for equality not just in the workplace and politics, but in private, intimate spheres. Hite's research embodied these struggles, insisting that personal experience was political. Her death in 2020, amid ongoing debates over gender equality and bodily autonomy, underscored how relevant her work remained. Ultimately, Shere Hite's death invites reflection on humanity's relationship with mortality and memory. Figures like her remind us that intellectual bravery often comes at personal cost, but their ideas can outlive them, reshaping culture long after their voices fall silent. We immortalize Hite not with monuments, but through the continued conversations she dared to begin. Conversations that echo in classrooms, movements, and the intimate truths women share about their lives. Lucio Battisti, one of Italy's most influential singer-songwriters, passed away on September 9, 1998, in a Milan hospital at the age of 55 due to cancer. His death was natural, but it resonated profoundly within the cultural fabric of Italy and beyond. Battisti had long been a private figure, especially in his later years, withdrawing from the public eye at the height of his fame. The circumstances of his passing mirrored this retreat. Quiet, dignified, and shrouded in privacy, as if his departure itself respected his lifelong desire to let the music, not the man, speak. The immediate consequences of his death were felt in a wave of mourning across Italy. Fans gathered in the streets, radio stations played his songs in tribute, and headlines mourned not only the man, but the closing of an era in Italian popular music. Battisti had transformed the musical landscape by blending Italian lyrical tradition with contemporary sounds influenced by rock, soul, and progressive music. His collaborations with lyricist Mogol produced enduring classics that gave voice to themes of love, alienation, and personal reflection. With his passing, Italy lost not just an artist, but a cultural bridge to a period of radical artistic experimentation in the late 20th century. His death amplified his legend. In life, Battisti was sometimes criticized for his later experimental works, which diverged from the melodic pop that had made him famous. Yet, in death, the full scope of his artistry was reappraised. His early hits, such as Il mio canto libero and Acqua azzurra, Acqua chiara, were celebrated anew, while his boldness in pursuing artistic integrity, even at the cost of commercial popularity, was recognized as visionary. His passing reminded Italy that Battisti's music had been the soundtrack to collective memories, youthful summers, political unrest, and the tender complexities of personal relationships. What Battisti's death reveals about humanity's relationship with mortality and memory is profound. Mortality transforms absence into myth, and Battisti's silence, already a hallmark of his later career, became eternal. He is immortalized not through monuments, but in the melodies sung across generations, in literature that references his influence, and in the emotional resonance his songs still carry. His legacy shows how music, as an art form, can transcend death by embedding itself in the rhythms of everyday life. In remembering Lucio Battisti, we recognize the enduring power of art to outlast its creator, shaping identity, memory, and cultural continuity long after the voice itself has faded.